website, so if it's like the best webinar you've ever seen in your life, you can show it to all your family and friends. If it's not the best webinar, then I'm going to be doing it again tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, and normally the second shot is a lot better. So we only have a few people signed up for that webinar, so don't hesitate to sign up for it if you want to see it again done right. Okay, so here we go. Best practice product overview. First off, excuse me, we're CSI. We've been selling IMIS since 1992, and we kind of like to think of ourselves as the leading provider of add-on products to the IMIS community. Some of those products, our first product way back when was iMerge. It's still the most powerful tool for merging records with IMIS. Meeting Closer is still the best way to close meetings, especially if you want to get your CEUs generated. iImport and Activity Importer Plus, two of our most popular products today. People are importing stuff into IMIS like crazy from outside sources. Those products obviously allow you to do it on your own without having to pay people like CSI to do the work. IMAP is our geolocation tool. Our donation page, CSI Donation, was called iDonate. Turns out we forgot to trademark it. So now it's CSI Donate. For those of you that do have that product, we have a new release coming out now, which is really, really cool. Page Filter, which is our tool to do magic with Rise and Public View. FREs, if you use fundraising, you should have this. It's the ability to edit posted gifts and pledges. iDocument, our newest product for documenting your IMIS so that if you lose your super user, you are not up a creek, if you will. And of course, iEmail. So what you may not have known is that we've got over 450 active clients using iEmail. It is by far our most popular product. We have enhanced it over the years based on your suggestions and needs, and we update it like crazy. And you're probably saying, really, like crazy? Yes. Since 2.0, we've had 36 new versions of iEmail. We've added a whole bunch of major new features, some of which I'm going to show you today. First, the ability to support lookup tables for email inserts, and that's really about categorizing the data you're putting into IMIS. Early versions of iEmail simply stored an activity that was of email type. And the fact is, you get a lot of different emails from your constituents. My examples sometimes are resumes. But maybe it's proof of attendance somewhere. Maybe it is actually CEUs that they've taken elsewhere and things like that. So these can all be stored and categorized in IMIS via iEmail. IMIS 20 support. So if you're on 15, you're going to need a newer version of iEmail if you haven't upgraded in a while, because we added IMIS 20 support. And that's been enhanced along the way. We are supporting the latest interim release from ASI. So if you are on 20.2.46 or 49, you're going to want to get the latest release of iEmail. Outlook 2016 had to support that. We added a cool feature where you can actually edit the activity before it inserts into IMIS. So if someone sends you an email that says my resume or forward:"resume, you can clean up that subject line so it goes into IMIS nice. I mentioned the support of the interim releases, and then this is coming soon. I'm going to show it here. It's really, really cool. It's the ability to save the email as an attachment to the activity in what's known as an EML file format. So that's the actual email, so that when you do go to open that attachment in IMIS, it opens in Outlook. This is really powerful if you're saving these emails for legal reasons. Regular iEmail or iEmail today saves the subject line and the text and all the attachments. But obviously, as I just pointed out, it can be modified. This new feature that's coming out allows you to actually save the original email as it came in untouched. Okay. Well, we did some minor stuff along the way, too. One of the things we forgot to add way back when was the ability to do a Control-A to select everyone in a committee when you want to email them. And then even after we did that, people said, I don't remember what those keystrokes were. And so we said, hey, let's add a Select All button so they can just easily click Select All and get everyone to email. we added this feature for maybe one of you who's on the phone, the ability to hide the search tab. I'm going to talk about customizing iEmail for your staff in a minute. This client said, I don't want the search tab out there. I only want them using IQA, or I want them using events. I do not need individual emails going out via this tool. So you can actually hide the search tab. We added a single installer for Outlook. One of the big fun things we always had is people kept installing the wrong client. You need to know if you're on Outlook 32-bit or Outlook 64-bit. It's a little tricky to find. Microsoft makes that hard to find, and so we just made it easy for you. We made a single installer for you that will actually go and do everything you need. And then we did lots of little fixes, like if you tried to insert an activity, an email activity, and there was a blank email address on there, iEmail didn't like that. Committees were sorting in a kind of a funky way. We cleaned that up. People wanted to roll out version 2 while they were still on version 1. And the problem with that is the minute you turned on version 2, version 1 stopped working. So we allowed support for both of those versions to run side by side. Uh-oh. We'll just ignore that thing that just came up there. So there we go. Those are some of the things that we've actually added in miscellaneous other ones. So the main reason we're having this webinar is, why do you want to actually still use iEmail? Well, it's still the fastest way to email an individual, a committee, small event rosters, to use IQA, and then ad hocs. Some of you, in fact, a lot of you are still using ad hocs. They're powerful, they're simple, you know them well. It's the fastest way to email people in an ad hoc. But more importantly, you need the ability to track each email in IMIS. The reason is you need to save the full cycle communications with your members, your non-members, your prospects. You need to see every communication you've had with that member from an email perspective. And I'll be honest with you, it's still the #1 way to communicate these days, right? It's not happening over the phone as much as we'd like it to be. I don't think faxes are used too much. It's all email. And if you can save that entire communication history on their record, you get an entire picture of what's going on. Let's talk about some different ways to do that, and then we're going to talk about why it's so important. So this is the multiple activity type support. It's been out in iEmail for a long time, and we've got some cool features, but I'm surprised that a lot of people still aren't using it. So this webinar is going to touch on this first off. You can go out here and have different activity types for inserting. So as I go to insert this activity in IMIS, this is an email, and I'm inserting it onto Zach's record in IMIS. I don't have to save it as an email activity. I can hit that little zoom button right there, and now I can choose a different activity type. At the end of this webinar, I'm going to actually take you through step by step how to set this up. But for right now, I'm going to show you how easy it is to use. So I've gone in there, and I can choose different activity types. Well, so what, Doug? Well, here's what. Check it out. The left side is a regular email activity type that I've set up. Notice that on the right side, it's called eResume. So I have my email activity type. I've also made an email resume activity type. Notice that activity type actually has different prompts for the fields, and I even have a lookup for what department should be paying attention to that. None of this is available on the regular email activity type. I can add it, but my point is you want to configure multiple activity types and have them designed for the type of email that's coming in or being sent out. Because this is really powerful. I may not care about a department on a regular email, but I do care about it when they send in their resume. So you can configure all sorts of things like that. Speaking of that department, to check that out, that was a lookup table that I actually added to IMIS, and then I told iEmail that I want to be able to fill out that information when I'm creating a welcome email. So you saw that in the other one. In this case, actually, now I've got a lookup table. So as I'm inserting this email into IMIS, I'm actually categorizing it. So why in the world do you want to do that? Well, this is from CIO.com, and these are some of their 11 best practices for CRM. You really want to be able to see everyone who interacts with customers. You want to see that everyone interacts with customers, and you want to be able to see the history. So if I pull up someone's record in IMUS, I need to see that my peers are communicating with her. I need to see what she's writing back, and I need to see what they're sending her. If that's all in one of my coworkers' email boxes, I'm not going to be able to see it. I don't know what's going on. So that's going to help me know how and where our customers are actually interacting with us, right? So maybe they're asking a lot about books that we're selling. Maybe they're asking about our new event. I need to understand what's going on, even if I'm not the one doing the communication. Because we've got other departments, right? And these are taken right off their websites. We need to know how our other departments at our organization are interacting, and I need to see the data that they have on the member. So we're going to store this all on an individual's record in IMUS. And that's going to allow us to follow up. You saw that e-resume one where I assigned it to, say, the marketing department. That allows the marketing department to follow up on that activity, reach out to them, get more information, ask them to be a presenter at our next conference. So these are some of the whys from CIO.com, and if we translate those into iEmail, we have our iEmail best practices. You want to save emails from your members, your prospective members, former members. You really want to save emails that from any individual that you're going to have an interaction with going forward. Okay? Former members, obviously, we want to get them back. Prospective, we want to get them in, and members, we want to keep them. So we want to save any email from a member. We also would like to save any email sent to a member or a prospective member or a former member. That's important, right? That's the communications going on. My members are talking to different people at my organization. I want to see what they're saying. Therefore, we're going to categorize the emails, right? It's a best practice to create different activity types and different lookups within that activity type so that we can assign to a department or individual for follow-up. That's using those lookups on the activities. That gives us a complete history. So really, I want to be using iEmail on any received email and on any sent email. And that's all about an engagement management system, which is what IMUS is, right? We're staying engaged. We don't have silos. We don't have individual staff members. Boy, that's annoying. Too bad that's being videoed. We don't have individual staff members going out there and talking to people and not knowing what's happening. So how about some more best practices, right? You've given up some of your afternoon. I'm going to give you some more. I recommend you clean up your iEmail interface, and that includes adding additional name indexes, removing tabs that aren't used, hiding unused committees, and setting your default IQA path. What's that mean? Well, you may not know this, but IMUS has up to 4 additional lookups that you can configure. They're called name indexes. This is my iEmail before I started this webinar this morning. I had just 2 lookups in my IMUS. I had state and interest, and you can see them both right there. And they're actually configured from IMUS by going to Customers, Setup Module, Indexes, and there they are. But notice there's 2 other ones available. So now that I'm all said and done, I actually have gone in now and added 2 more out there. I added spouse and mobile phone. And now look what happens in iEmail. Right off the bat, I'm able to now look up people by their spouse name and mobile phone. So maybe I wanted to do something like, I just talked to a member and her husband, and boy, I really don't, her name was Jody and the husband was Walt. I don't even remember their last name. I can type in a first name of Jody and a spouse of Walt, and I will pull up that individual member and be able to email them. So it's a very powerful way to look up someone in IMUS. Also now the mobile phone is added. You can make these whatever you want. There's a couple steps to doing it, and I didn't think that was real appropriate for this webinar, so I made you a video. This is how to add additional lookups in IMUS, aka name indexes. It's pretty straightforward. If you go to downloads.csiinc.com and then /nameindexes.mp4. If you go to that one, you will be able to see all the steps. It's a full recorded video. It only took me 2 takes, but I did it, and that'll show you how to add additional name indexes, which will then be available in both iEmail as well as IMIS. Clean up unused tabs. We've added all these cool features to IMIS, right? iEmail, but you may not be using them. Here's one, for example. You probably all have views out there, and I'll bet you none of you, or very few of you, have actually created some views. So if you're not using that, go ahead and clean up that tab. Go into iEmail under Options, System Setup, and you can do that from the regular iEmail screen when you're sending an email to someone, or from the Insert Activity screen. You do have to be, I believe, level 8 or higher as a system admin. And you're just going to go in there and uncheck Enable Views. And after you do that, when people go into iEmail, it's going to look like that. Notice the Views tab is now gone. So you can go ahead and clean up these tabs. If you're no longer using ad hoc, you can turn them off. And that's a little bit where I talked about you can actually disable the Search tab. That was a new feature we added. So I think that's an important thing to do, to clean up your tabs, make it easier for your coworkers to use the product. I've always talked about doing this, hiding unused committees. If you don't want iEmail used to email certain committees, you don't want your coworkers emailing certain committees. In this case, I've got the board of directors out there. I really don't want them to be able to email the board. Same thing, go into your system setup, click on the committee selection. Down in there, you can actually go and say, I'm going to go ahead and hide the board. And now when you go into iEmail and you go to email the committees, the board is gone. It's no longer listed as one of the available committees here. Power tip. Tabs can be added back for individual staff. So let's say I have one person that uses the views, and that person needs those views. They love those views. They're the geeky type. But it's just one person. I really don't want to have the Views tab there for everyone else. So I can go hide the Views tab. Then what I'm going to do is create some access keywords. You don't need to create all of these access keywords. They're not going to hurt anything if you do. But notice we have a keyword for each of the different areas of iEmail. The admin section, the search, and that's new. That's why there's a star by it. Ad hocs, committees, events, views, IQA. These are purposely kept short because you can only have so many access keywords, so we don't want to chew up all the characters that are available. But in this case, I've gone and added under my access keywords table, under general lookup validation, I've added this iEmail views code along with the other ones because these are just my options. I'm going to pull up that individual that likes to use the views in IMIS. I'm going to click on user credentials. I'm going to click on staff access. I'm going to jump on down to access keywords. And I'm going to select that views access keyword. I've given this individual the key to see views, even though I have it off for everyone else. Now when they go into iEmail, they'll see the views tab is back, even though it's off for everyone else. So this is cool. You can do it across the board. As you saw, you can turn off ad hocs for everyone. So let's say you're moving away from ad hocs, but you still have a couple staff members that really need it. You can turn it off for everyone so they have to use IQA, but you can turn it back on for just, say, those 2 people that really want to keep it. Here's something I think is important. Set your default IQA path. IQA, it's a pretty hairy beast. And if you don't do this, I don't think you're going to have a lot of people using IQA because they're going to have to dig through to find the IQAs they need. Pick a base path, if you will. In this case, I'm actually using my event path. And then copy that URL that's in there. Back to System Setup in iEmail. And then drop that on the very bottom under Intelligent Query Architect Options as a root path. So that's going to go ahead and drop that right in there. And now, when they go into iEmail, oops, I guess I didn't do that screenshot. When they go into iEmail, you're only going to see that root path. I'll tell you, when I was experimenting with this today, I've always had it set up this way. There is no way to go back. So if that's the highest, if that's the root path you use, that's all you can be at. We're going to enhance iEmail so that even if that is your root path, if you need to go to another hierarchy or a key, you'll be able to do that in IQA. This is what I'm really excited about. Coming soon, the ability to save the complete email as an attachment in IMIS. So when you hit that Insert Activity button, it looks just like this. You saw this before, that's the eResume one. I've got my department on there and all those fun things. Notice this checkbox, Save Mail Message as an EML File Attachment. If that's checked, when I look at it in IMIS and click on it, so in IMIS I open the activity, I click on Attachment, I see the EML, stands for email, and when I open that attachment, boom, it uses my default email program and opens up that email as it was sent to me with the original subject line, the original attachments, everything is still in there. Probably needed a better activity here. Speaker tips, wheels, and dug rocks. I don't know what those are, but someday we'll open those. So that's coming soon. So what are your takeaways? I'm going to need to change the title of this slide for tonight because the takeaway in Asia Pacific is when you take something to go. So they say when you order your flat white, they say, do you want that for takeaway? So I'm going to need a new term, Brittany, for this one. Anyway, what are your takeaways from what I've covered so far? The more communication you capture, the better, right? You can't capture too much communication with your members or your non-members or your constituents, whatever you want to call them, the more the better. iEmail is a very quick tool for emailing small groups of people, committees, people registered for an event, people via an IQA, individual lookups, anything like that. But it also is a great tool for tracking their responses. So I can actually use it for not only sending and saving what I sent them, but I can now use it, and I always have been able to insert that activity in IMIS so I can see the full cycle communication. You want to configure iEmail so it's easy to use for the majority of your staff, and then adjust for those special users. Because the more you know about your constituents, the better off you're going to be as an organization, the more engaged your members are going to be, and there's not going to be these silos where that one staff member knows that one member, and that's the only relationship that's out there. You want it across the board. So what I'm going to move into right now is how I set up that activity. If you're not interested in this part, like I said, it's going to be recorded. But if you are interested, follow along. I'm going to show you how I set up those certain activities with the lookups. The first part of the webinar is over. I wanted you to see all those things that you should be doing with iEmail, and this is a little bit of the how. So I'm going to continue on. So I want to set up and configure a new activity in iEmail. Well, in order to do that, I've got to start with IMIS first. So under Customers, Activity Types, I'm going to click on New, or I'm going to edit an existing one. In this case, I'm going to set up my welcome email, if you will. So I'm going to fill out these fields. What I like to do is I'll click on the email activity, and I'll use that as a starting point. A couple important things here. Allow user edit. That's going to allow you to actually change the email before it gets inserted into IMIS. So if I wanted to change the subject line, or I wanted to change some text or anything like that, I can do that. The EML attachment is still going to be as the email came in. And this History tab, that's going to allow me to actually easily get to these activities in the desktop. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add any required lookup tables that are needed. So from Customers, Setup Tables, General Lookup Validation, we're going to hit the drop-down to New, create a table with the name of the activity type and the field title. So follow along. I just created an activity type called Email Welcome, And one of those fields, I'm going to go back, was actually titled Department. So you don't create it as UF3, you create it as what it's titled in IMUS. So in this case, it's email welcome / department. That's going to be my lookup table that I've just made. And then you're going to populate it with some good stuff out there, right? So you're going to populate it with your various departments and whatnot. So this is when I do that lookup while inserting the email or sending the email from IMUS, from my email, sorry, I'm going to be able to populate this department. Next, tell iEmail about the activity type. Same sort of thing, we're going to go into System Setup, and we're going to click on the Activity Type Setup button. There you're going to see the activity types that iEmail already knows about. If I had not already added iEmail Welcome, it's going to be available over here on the Available side, and I'm going to click and I'm going to add it over to Selected. So that iEmail says, okay, I get it. I can write and create these 3 different activity types. Last but not least, another little tip there, recycle the application pool. So from options in iEmail, web system setup, just click on recycle. Just click on, here's a new term, just click recycle application. Okay, and after you do that, you're all set. Rock your users, right? Tell them they've got a new activity they can create, they've got a new welcome activity, and please, when you insert that activity, set the department. All right, so there you go. You like what you're seeing and you want to get it? That's cool. What you want to do is find out what version of iEmail you're on now, okay? There's a Outlook version and there's a server version. If you go to Help About while you're in iEmail, you're going to see what you're on. Right there, Help About. You'll see the version I'm actually on is a version that's not even out yet. That's because I got the EML option in there, which we're still finishing up. Couple rules. If you happen to go on that screen and you see that you're on a server version of 2.3, the highest client version you can go to is going to be, say, 2.3.10. Sometimes, we haven't had to do it in about 2 years, we need to update the server components. And when we do that, that's going to require all of your clients to be upgraded. So if you're on 2.5, you're in good shape. If not, you're going to have some extra work to do. To get the latest version of iEmail, go to the ASI website. It's not on CSI's website. It's on ASI. It's sold through them. So from the releases, after you log in, go to Releases, go to Third-Party Products, click on iEmail. There you'll see the current release. Right now we're on 2.514, and that came out at the end of August. We'll have hopefully the EML stuff done by the end of this month. You can get previous releases here as well, so if you need to get the highest client release of 2.3, you can do that. I do recommend you all get up to 2.5 if you're not on it. But if you're going to need to upgrade your server component, you're going to need some IT assistance often. And then there are 2 critical documents we give you. We still need to fix this. There's a README that's always out of date, so you can just skip that. But then really there's an iEmail version 2 user guide. That has everything in it, including troubleshooting steps that you want to make sure you see. Okay, so before if you run into any issues, which we're going to talk about in a minute, read through that user guide. It has almost every issue people run into. Okay. The workstation. All you have to do for installing your client is make sure Outlook is closed and click on iEmail Client Setup. Do not go into these other folders. Just run this client setup. We did this so you don't have to figure out what version of Outlook you're on. Please do not try and outsmart it. We've had people go in and install the 64-bit version when they're on Outlook 32-bit. And they said, I knew I was on 64-bit. Well, they weren't. And then iEmail doesn't work. So just stay out of these folders. In fact, we're going to probably rename them in a future release. Run the iEmail client setup, and it will put the latest version of iEmail on, provided you have Outlook closed. But if you get stuck, if anything goes wrong, go ahead and email us. Okay? But please read those troubleshooting guides that we created. Our email address is support@csiinc.com. please give us as much as you can. Please don't send us an email that says, iEmail is not working. It doesn't help us. Give us a screenshot if you can, okay? Give us the version of iEmail you're trying to install, the version of IMIS you have, or what version of Windows you might be on. Give us as much information as possible. And then the steps of how you got there. If you say, I unzipped the program and nothing happened, that helps us, right? We know you didn't even try. So please give us as much as possible. We run about 2 days, and that's 2 CSI business days. So if any of you are up at 1 a.m. right now in Asia Pacific, and you submit us a ticket at 1 a.m. 1 a.m. our time, we're not going to see it until quite a bit later. So it's 2 business days CSI time, and we are on Central Time Zone. If you use an iEmail and you have a suggestion, please send it to us. Same email address, send it to us at support@csinc.com. We're going to put this webinar up on our website if you want to see it later. But you can also just go to our website, any of these links, and learn more about iEmail and some of the features. This is really not designed to be a sales thing. This is designed to show you what you can do with iEmail. So we'll open it up. If there are any questions, you can go ahead and fire them over to us. And I do see there's a couple. Let's see if I can figure it out. I missed the first 5 minutes of this. That means you have to come back at 6 p.m. Central. So this question, you now have an Office 365 specific. Is there a difference between these? Yes, there is an iEmail Cloud version coming out. It is a completely different version. It will work with the web client of Outlook, as well as Outlook 2013 and 16. It does require Exchange 2013 or 16 or Office 365. So I want to be real clear here. You can still use iEmail Desktop with Office 365. We have it here. The majority of our clients have Office 365. You cannot use iEmail Desktop with the web version of Outlook. That will be what iEmail Cloud will be for. iEmail Cloud also has one other very important criteria. It uses the new ASI RESTful API. So it is only available if you are on IMIS 20.2 Q4 2015 or higher. So you must be on the latest release of IMIS to use it. And it will support IMIS 20-200. I don't believe anybody on this call is on that version. So it's going to happen. We're looking for beta testers right now. You can go ahead and email us at support@csinc.com if you're interested in beta testing. It will be sold on a subscription basis. So you will license it on a subscription basis, which is different than iEmail Desktop. So it's coming out. That's what I can tell you now. Let's see if there's anything else. All right. Can we use 2 different versions, 2.53 and 2.55? Yes. As long as your server version starts with 2.5, you can have multiple versions of the iEmail client on desktops. So if you have 30 desktops and you don't have time to go get a new version of iEmail installed on all of them, you can roll it out at your leisure, provided you are matching the workstation to the server. So if your server's on 2.5, you can have multiple versions of 2.5 in terms of the client. But if your server is on 2.3, you cannot have 2.4 and 2.5 and 2.3 out there as your clients. I know that sounds a little confusing, but that's kind of how it is. As long as the server, the first 2 numbers of the server match, and the first 2 numbers of the version match on the server. As long as they match with the first 2 numbers on the client, you're in good shape. Can you use wildcards on the search? Yes, by default, everything will do wildcards, and I believe you can also do percentages, so they're in as well. But by default, if I just typed in D for my first name, it's going to find everyone that starts with a D. Those are some good questions. Thank you very much. If you have any more, We'd love to hear from you. There's my email address on there. You can email me, or you can use that support email if you want to guarantee it gets answered. Thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it. Like I said, redoing this at 6 p.m., right? 6 p.m. Central. So you can go ahead and sign up for that then too. Thanks again. Appreciate it. We'll chat with you soon.